Alright, so we've kind of got a slightly rushed video today. I had hoped to really take my time and sit down and discuss these two wonderful typewriters. But one of them is going to be sold either tomorrow or the next day, so I just had to make sure that I had something to present. So behind me I have two IBM Selectric models. This is the Selectric 721 and this is the personal typewriter. Now both of these machines represent the smallest IBM Selectric models that they ever made. The 7 series typewriter, also known as the Selectric 1 series, is the original IBM Selectric produced, and it was released in 1961. This is probably my favorite electric typewriter of all time, and I love the small form factor. So there are a few different designations of the Selectric 1. This is the 721, as I mentioned. The Selectric 7.1s are carbon drive machines, and the number 2 at the very end, that last digit, denotes this as the smallest model. These came in 2 additional sizes that were slightly larger and accommodated wider widths of paper. Now, when the Selectric 2 and the Selectric 3 were released, they came in a standard wide carriage configuration, but some people still liked the form factor of the original Selectric, and this is where the personal typewriter comes in. This machine forgoes the Selectric name brand, and it just branded the personal typewriter, and it has the boxy styling of the number 2 and number 3. Also includes the correction function with the lift-off or cover-up tape installed, and they are all by default carbon drive machines. You could special order any IBM to have a fabric ribbon, but for the most part, after the introduction of the original Selectric, they were all carbon. To start, I much prefer the style design of the earlier Selectrics. We have a wonderful kind of swoop on the front of the keyboard, and these small oval cutouts in the sides of the typewriter, as well as these nice 3-pronged spoked knobs. That is not true on the personal typewriter, which is actually a dot larger in shape and has these flat boxy sides and a very flat looking knob. Coming around to the front of the machine, we can see that the badge on this one says personal typewriter, and the badge on this one is just the IBM Selectric. Over here we still have the standard 88 or 84 character typewriter layout, and the same thing on this machine with the inclusion of the correction key. Under the hoods things get a little bit different. Excuse the dirty condition of this machine. This is my personal, well, this is the personal typewriter, but this is my personal typewriter. And I have a fabric cartridge installed there. And this one takes the 210 cartridges, or what we call the bicycle cartridges, which are currently out of production, and they come with the ribbon lift built in. The fabric drive machines have a metal ribbon vibrator, which is nice. The early Selectrics have plastic margin systems, and the later ones opted for kind of a half metal, half plastic system. Both of them are pretty robust for what they do, and I'm not too concerned about having issues with them breaking. The one thing about the Selectric 7 series is if you do have the carbon drive ribbons, you will need spooled carbon ribbons. These are what your Selectric 7 series ribbons will look like. 2 spools. And they can be a pain in the butt to install, and if you drop them, they come unwound. Far cry from the ease of installation that the cassette-style cartridges have. Both of these machines take the standard 84-character type element, which is a lot more abundant than the 96-character type element of the Selectric 3. The only thing that I do wish about these machines was that it took the number 2 cartridge, but we can do a conversion on the ribbon platter to convert this back to the number 2 cartridge, but that tends to be a bit complicated and expensive. So, I think the only thing left to do here is a quick type sample, because they both do pretty much the same thing. On the Selectric number 1 though, we do have multiple copy. It's a bit hard to see in the camera, but moving this lever shifts the platen forward and back. And the thinking behind this was that if you had multiple carbon copies stacked in there and your paper was really thick, you could set the platen back a little bit to keep your type impression the same. On the right side, we have single spacing and double spacing, as well as our paper release. Now, because that multiple copy setting is stupid, they removed it when they introduced the IBM Selectric 3, and for the personal typewriter, they have also removed that setting. On the right side, there is single spacing, 1.5 spacing, and double spacing, which gives you that European standard, and we also have our paper release. The third lever here is the ratchet release for the platen, which on the Selectric number 1 is a small plastic tab that is actually built in to the platen assembly itself. So if you're looking for, something with a little bit more convenience and ease of use, the updated machine is better because it has more accessible levers that are a little bit more robust, as well as your nice handy correction key. Okay, yeah, one of the problems that I usually have with the bicycle cartridge is sometimes our ribbon kind of hops the guide a little bit there. So we'll just tighten that up a dot and reinstall it and try again. And the type element I have installed here is 12-pitch letter Gothic, which I think is a very nice typeface. Let's say you were typing hello and type one too many L's. We can remove one of those and replace it with an O. We of course have our ribbon carrier, which is very convenient. We can also put this into a stencil setting for typing mimeographs. So if you notice that your ribbon is not printing on the page, the first thing to check is to make sure that that is not slid over to the left. We also have a small touch selector thingy up here. This little red knob on this lever here controls how hard the type element hits your page. And then we have this small red lever which releases the carriage, and this gray lever on the side which releases your correction tape. Both of those are very easy to install, and if need be I might actually do a video on installing those later, but I'm sure plenty of them exist. Biggest benefits of a carbon printing machine is just how crisp that text is. It is almost perfect, and I absolutely love carbon ribbon machines. But I also love the printing and the feel of using the original IBM Selectric, so we're going to swap these around and do some typing on the ink machine. It's kind of a pain in the butt. shuffle both of these around. Okay, there we go. Easy peasy for this machine because it looks so much better. In fact, next to me I have a copy of the Etc. magazine for the Journal of the Early Typewriter Collectors Association, which features a cover image of this typewriter that I shot, including a few other photographs of this machine. It is just such an aesthetically pleasing typewriter. And when you're sitting down to write at a typewriter, sometimes the most important thing about a tool is not that it accomplishes its purpose like every other typewriter will, but how much you enjoy using it. So I'm going to roll in the test page. We'll turn this on, and we'll do a little bit of typing. I made some typos, of course. I normally do on these machines because the touch is so light, and you do not have a correction key down here, so you just have to go over and then exit out. And the typeface that I have in here is adjutant. I don't really know what that means. It is also a 12-pitch type style. And as I mentioned before, they are super easy to swap out. We can immediately see that the text and print on the Selectric with the fabric ribbon is a lot bolder and softer than the crisp, clean type of carbon. And even though I still prefer carbon, I find that this has that nice kind of traditional typewriter look on a machine that is a joy to use, blazing fast, and very responsive. But yeah, let's just enjoy the smooth typing experience of this machine a little bit more. And as I mentioned, it is super easy to swap out the typeface of the machine with one of many type styles. And I have a few out now. Some of my favorites are, of course, the Old English. I have Orator, Courier, Prestige, which is one of the standard typefaces, Script, Letter Gothic, and a Delegate. I also have a selection of 96 character elements, as well as a handful of much more obscure fonts that are in the back room. All of these fonts, of course, are available for purchase, and if you want a special one that I don't have on display, you are welcome to request it, and I'll see if I have it in stock. But one of the most popular ones, arguably, is, of course, Script. So let's load this one up and give it a whirl. The procedure, of course, for installing the type element is very easy. Oh. I would recommend doing it with two hands. Oh, would you look at that? Did I break it? Okay, well, I think that makes two broken Script elements. Yeah, so I will stand by my recommendation of swapping type elements with 2 hands. Let's just grab another one. Lift up the lever on the type element. Make sure the arrow is pointed forward and your machine is not on shift. Slot it in there, close the latch, and you are ready to type. Just stick some paper in there, and we got wonderful script typeface. And of course, since these 2 machines take the older style of type element, we can swap between them. Just like that. It's just easy as literally clipping it in. And we will put the page in this machine, turn it on, and we have a very nice comparison now between the ink printing and the carbon printing, and this is the identical type element on both, so you can just see how much crisper carbon printing is. So yeah, I think that about sums up everything that I wanted to say about these 2 wonderful typewriters. If you are looking for a nice, modern, all-rounded typewriter that's going to write everything you need with a very high quality, but you don't want to deal with the obscenely large size of the IBM Selectric 2 and 3 because they are massive and heavy, then I would recommend locating a personal Selectric, well, a personal typewriter. The only downside of the personal typewriter is that they're a little bit difficult to come by. Now, if you want the small form factor and you're okay with not having a correction key, then I highly recommend the Selectric 1 series. Even though they're a lot older, they're still just as serviceable as the new machines, but they look way nicer, and you can get them easily in either the carbon configuration or the ink. It's a little bit easier to find ribbons for the carbon ones, and they're easier to refill than the ink cartridges, but both of them are readily available to this day. That's the other thing about the personal Selectric, is since it uses the 210 series ribbon, this bicycle cartridge here, nobody's making those anymore, so the longevity and future-proof nature of this machine is kind of up in the air. And the conversions to get this swapped out to the number 2 style cartridge is very expensive. So all in all, my recommendation is to go for the older machine. I like it way more. But some people really love the modern styling of the personal typewriter. And it is frankly a very good machine. So if you're someone who makes a lot of typos and you need this correction tape and this correction feature, and you don't want to deal with the massive bulk of the 2 and the 3, then this is the machine that you should get. But what it really boils down to is if you don't need correction, stick with one of these. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope this was somewhat informative. I'm going to be sad to see this machine go. I'm going to be happy to bring this back home. I never really know how to end a video, and one could argue that I don't even know how to make a video in the first place. I hope you love these 2 machines as much as I did. I hope this video has kind of shown you the pros and cons of using either the Selectric 7 series or the personal typewriter. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of crap in the comments about breaking a second script type element. But in my defense, I don't actually see the broken pieces on the floor here, so it might have been broken before. I'm not gonna lie though, that does hurt my heart a little bit, but I got like half a dozen of them in the back room still. So if you want a script type element and you don't want me to break it, breaking it, then come buy it before I can break it. And I think that about sums it up. I gotta make sure these are off because they run so quietly that I have let them run for days at a time without realizing, and they do tend to overheat, which is not the safest thing. So yeah, they look so nice next to each other. They're best friends. Okay, well, time to get to work.